I came home from a flight one day and my mom called me and she said, the wall just fell. I want a book about carpet and tile. And in the back of my mind, I'm going like, what are we going to do with that? People who have a purpose, even in an old age, they do much, much better and live longer.
Welcome, my amazing people, to another episode of I Got an Accent, So What? This is your host, Gia Gomez. Welcome back. What a joy to have you guys all back. And today I have, like you guys see, a guest. Her name is Bibi LeBlanc.
Yes.
Did I pronounce it?
Bibi LeBlanc, yes.
Oh, that was so LeBlanc. So nice. And with my accent, guys, you know how I destroy everything. Bibi, thank you so much for coming to this space. And I can't wait to interview you because I have a lot of questions for this amazing woman over here. First time meeting her. Yes. First time my producer put her in my calendar. It's our first time for both of us. And we've been talking so much behind the whole entire cameras that we're like, we need to start recording because we're not going to have nothing left to talk about.
I don't think we're going to run out of things anytime soon.
Welcome.
So nice to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. So, Bibi, I kind of glanced into my notes. Immigrant from Germany, right? Berlin?
Yeah.
You were born in Berlin?
Yes. I was born in the American sector of West Berlin.
What did that mean?
So, yes, I get a funny look when I ask people, when I tell people that. So, that was during the Cold War, basically. I was raised in West Berlin during the Cold War. So, there was a wall around Berlin and the Soviets all around. And
wow.
Yeah.
So that's why your
after
accent.
World War II, Germany was divided into 4 zones of occupation by the French, British, Americans, and Soviets. And Berlin was inside the Soviet zone and also divided because it was the capital. And the Soviets really wanted the Western Allies out of the city, and in 1948 blockaded the city, and all the access roads, waterways, and trains, they just locked them up in an effort to get the Western Allies out.
Oh, wow.
And that's, so...
That was in the 19s, what?
That was 1948, 49.
Wow.
They did that. So then the Western Allies decided to do an airlift into Berlin, supply 2.5 million people with everything they needed in West Berlin, and that was coal and food and medical supplies and clothes and whatever you need to live.
Yes.
And so a really, really incredible story. And actually we just happened to go there. My latest book is called Wings of Freedom, and it tells that story because this year is the 75th anniversary of the Berlin airlift. Oh. And the end of the blockade is next weekend, and I'm going there on Sunday. So
much knowledge just from an intro.
Yeah, I wasn't. Yeah. Well, now I realize. So my goal when I was growing up in Berlin in a city with a wall around, I didn't like it. My goal in life as a young person was to leave Berlin, because I felt that very acutely. And we had family in East Berlin, and we could go through a checkpoint and go visit them, but it was always very scary.
You have some family in East Berlin, and you were in West.
That grew up with communists, and you would be familiar with what that would have been like. And
so your side was you said the American?
Yes, I was. Yeah, the American sector. I was
the freedom side.
Yeah, but it didn't feel very free because there was a wall around the city, and we couldn't just leave and go to the countryside. Like here, you drive out of Orlando and you're out in the country or the beach or whatever. In Berlin, that wasn't possible. You had to travel through the Soviet zone to West Germany. And that was always a big hassle, long lines at the checkpoints, and they would search your car and could detain you for anything they wanted to. And so anyway, my goal in life was to leave Berlin, and I did. As soon as I finished high school, turned 18, I left Berlin. And then celebrated when the wall came down. I didn't think I would ever see that day coming, But when I started working on this book about the airlift about a year ago and started diving into that story, I really didn't know much about it, but airplanes were supplying Berlin, and on average, they had airplanes landing every 3 minutes 24/7 for almost a year.
They were airlifting people back and forth?
No, supplies for the people in Berlin. And that's just so incredible. And I realized now, when I was telling the story at a high school in Berlin a couple of months ago, I realized that growing up with the wall was the lesser of two evils. Because if that airlift hadn't happened and the Western Allies just had said, okay, we'll give up Berlin, West Berlin, I would have grown up under the Soviets, and under communism, and probably not just Berlin, but Western Germany and Western Europe, because there were
so much analogy in that, just mouthful of division. Because you just said it. Even though I was free, there was a huge wall, a division that they were trying to protect you because you didn't know what was in the other side.
Yeah, well, but we did because we had family there,
of course.
And,
but it was to protect you. And I know very well. It's funny because a lot of people, when I say that, and I love talking to somebody that have lived that. When the wall of Berlin fall, which was in 1989, correct?
Yeah.
We felt it in Cuba. Believe me, that's one of the things that I talk, and people are like, what are you talking about? Like,
what was that like? I wonder, what was that like in Cuba?
Well, in Cuba, it was such a...
because I know the whole world felt it, but
the
in
whole
Cuba,
world felt it. We felt
been...
it the most because that's where there was so much more scarcity in the whole entire island. Because when the whole entire wall fell and there was no support any longer on Cuba, then Cuba went through a whole entire, I remember 1 pound of pork, it came out to be like 300 pesos, which is equal to $300. So there was a scarcity to the whole entire island. And that affected, I believe that it came up to 1993. And that is what pushed my parents to come to the United States in a raft. 4 years later?
Yeah.
So I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
I just didn't know. We heard Berlin. I didn't know there was a division between communists and the people free in there. So it's so amazing how history connects us.
Yes. And how you have these realizations many years later,
Yeah, you just told me that. You said when the wall fell, I'm like, that is the same wall that you felt that you were limited and you were, wow, that is, you guys have no idea. But people that have lived in the communists like I did when I was up to 10 years old, and I keep telling people, a 10-year-old in communists in Cuba is like an 18-year-old here because of the survivorship and things that you have to prevail and survive. And one of the saddest thing, actually, I talked about it last week with somebody, and I said, communists rob kids' youth. It robbed their fantasies, their things to dream, because they have to be accelerated into adulthood, into what it is because of what's around it in their environment. And that's how I always felt. I felt that I remember when I was a stroller, which I don't know how many of you remember when you were little, but I do remember when I was 3 years old in my mom's stroller, and all of a sudden I remember picking up milk here because we have so much scarcity, just because the environment pushes to be big kids and, big boys and big girls. We had to, because there was no other way. Wow. It's so interesting. I already know this is going to be a great interview. How old were you, Bibi, when you left Berlin?
I was 18.
So you were
as
already...
soon as I finished high school, just before I finished high school, I had started dating somebody who lived in West Germany. And so when I finished high school, December 81 or January 82, I left Berlin and we moved in together. And
so you didn't see the wall fall. You heard about it.
Well, I was a flight attendant. That was in 89. I was a flight attendant. I lived in Frankfurt, and I came home from a flight one day, and my mom called me, and she said, the wall just fell. I'm like, what are you talking about? It was so not in the realm of possibility because I grew up with it. It was always there. It was just the way the world worked, And so she's like, yeah, the wall just fell. And so my roommates and I jumped into the car. I think we rented a car and started driving towards Berlin. And on the Autobahn, we could see the East German cars coming the opposite direction, which was so odd because we had never seen them in West Germany, obviously, all these East German cars, and they were different. And so then we got to the first checkpoint where you go from West Germany into East Germany, basically through the first checkpoint into the Soviet zone. And then it's like 110 miles to Berlin from there. And we got there. It was late at night, November, cold, dark night. And usually it would have been on any normal day, it would have been deserted. But that night there was a big party there. There's cars parked left and right, welcoming people from East Germany through that checkpoint. And people had thermos cans with hot chocolate and tea and whatnot. And there was, hugging and crying and dancing.
So much division between the families.
Yeah. And it's just a moment I will never forget. So we stayed there for a little while and then kept driving to Berlin and went straight to the Brandenburg Gate, which was, symbol of the Cold War, really. And it was right at between two sides of the city, and it was no man's land. Neither West Berliners nor East Berliners could walk through that gate. But on that night we did. And that was the first time in my life that I walked through there, and that was a big, big moment.
Thank you for reliving that. I pray to God that one day we can see that. I can see my island free and not have a division as what we have right now with so many family divided that are here especially in Miami, South Florida, that have never seen their family in 60, 70 years. And some of them have died because they came back in when the whole entire Bay of Pigs, that they kick a bunch of all the people that have businesses in the island. They were treated like they were humiliated, and they throw them out of the island. And those people left with that hurt because the communists made them leave everything behind, and they couldn't talk to their family. And there was a huge division up to today's days, that there are people that they said, I will never go to the island. They can, but they don't, because they said what represented of them dividing with their family and taking everything away from them. Like I remember they would throw them eggs and things, and they will kick them out because they were not participating of that party at that time. But there's been a lot of pain for years, 70 plus years. And one day I would love, hopefully before I leave this earth, to see that. So just to see that you said that you celebrate, because that's the first thing, that all these policies and all this political, all they do is divide the family and divide them, rob them of so many decades, year of them rather than be together. Yeah.
I feel like there's so much division these days on so many levels, if it's race or sex or politics or whatever. Absolutely. And that's why I really like that story of the Berlin airlift, because people had to work together, and it shows what we can accomplish when we communicate and work together, Yeah. You have to realize this was 1948 and 45. They were trying to kill each other, all those nations, and now here they are back trying to feed the people of Berlin and let them survive, and build a democracy and all of that. And
even more in Europe, that it was the land, it's so connected to each other, and they're all cousins, and they're all, and as years, you see how the borders have changed, and then they become, so I'm like, how you lose your identity, it's powerful. But that's how we open, guys. Bibi, this is amazing. I already kind of feel, how was you growing up? I imagine now I see why your survivorship and your entrepreneurial side come from.
It's just interesting that you say that, because I feel like one of the cultural differences between growing up in Germany and here, entrepreneurship over there is not a big thing. It's not something people really talk about. Starting a business is a much bigger deal there and much more difficult than it is here. Here you can just, go on Sunbiz and sign up an LLC or whatever, register one, and start a business, And in Germany, it's not like that. And there are fewer people with that entrepreneurial mindset. And so that's something I really appreciate about living here and being here.
Yeah.
Because it's not something...
truly a land of whatever you want to
still,
make it. And I think what you just said, it comes from the point of, like in my island, people were entrepreneurs not because of, I guess they had it in them, but it was more for survivorship. Yeah. Because everything was, was controlled by the government. Everything is controlled by the government. So if you want to make a little bit more, you had to do a side hustle,
But it wasn't something was encouraged.
Not like now. Not like now. Like over here, I feel that the ones that are entrepreneurs is because they truly desire something different than just having a 9 to 5, because of so much comfortability we have in this country. No, I don't think there's a doubt about that. We live in a very comfortable nation, that whatever you want to make out of it, it's really up to you.
Mm-hmm. It really is.
You cannot say the system or because I'm probably green and you are purple, truly there's no excuses.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
This is the land that whatever you want, you can make it. If you're willing to make it your priorities, organize yourself, be persistent and consistent.
Yeah.
Nothing is going to be given to you. And that is the mindset of an entrepreneur. Mm-hmm. But a lot of it has to be also, I think, for you and me, the environment that we were exposed, right? That we wanted to do something else, or we want to do, we didn't want to be boxed in. But yeah, in my country was the contrary. The ones that they were entrepreneurs, they were like, oh, these crazy people that are just having their side businesses and God knows, they're just winging it. They were not very looking like you should be under the government and you should be, having a degree and being in that upper levels. It was success. Mm-hmm. Over here is the contrary, right?
Yeah.
And it's very curious how we see how society, how things, how culture, and how the environment shift our mentality. Mm-hmm. But it's up to us.
Totally, yeah. And you can't blame anybody or anything, You can design your life. And stuff happens, but, it's how you respond to that, what you do with what happens that you have no control over. It's how you respond to it.
I agree. We have two choices. Be a victim or be a victor.
Yeah. Yeah.
So came when you were 18 years old. You have your life, you have your kids.
I did not come here when I was 18. I just left Berlin.
So, where do you go?
To West Germany, to Hanover, okay. Small town.
Got it, yes. Yeah. I heard that part. Oh, wow. So how long were you there for?
So I did an apprenticeship with a pharmaceutical company where I learned like business admin kind of training. The school system is different. Not everybody goes to college over there. Most jobs, or a lot of jobs, you learn on the jobs, hands-on. Like if you want to be a nurse, you go work at a hospital. And then, sometimes blocks of weeks you go to school to learn the stuff you need to learn, the theory and stuff, but it's more hands-on training. So I went through business admin training in a pharmaceutical company and went through all the different departments. And I think it was a great education. Wow. And that was the first time where I feel like I started coming out of my shell. As I was telling you earlier, I was super shy and would not talk to strangers, leaving a message of voicemails on the phone. My worst nightmare, would never do it. And
if they pick up, you're like, what do you pick up?
Yeah. So there I started learning that I like interacting with people and that I like asking them questions. And, that's grown ever since then. So I did that. And then in that boyfriend that I had, he wanted to take me to California. And I'm like, nah, not interested. I didn't want to come to the US. So I had these prejudices, they're materialistic and superficial. And these ideas, I think a lot of Europeans had at the time. Mm-hmm. But
Germans have it more. I know. I've been in you guys' airport.
Yeah. Okay. But he talked me into it, and we went to California, spent 4 weeks there, and I absolutely fell in love with California and the U.S., And I'm like, I want to spend more time here. But it wasn't easy because you can't just come to this country and, get a job. And so I became a flight attendant I finished the training, and then I went as an au pair to California and spent 8 months in the Bay Area, what's now Silicon Valley, and learned English a lot better and made my first skydive during that time. And that was a really...
How old were you?
22 or so. That was in 86. Yeah. And that was a really pivotal decision, actually, as it turns out, because I made that one jump and then later met my husband that way. So
skydiving became your passion.
Yeah.
So I'm sensing here this adventure girl that you don't like to be boxed in because you grew up with all this wall around.
That's probably really. Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you're like, I'm free bird. I want to experience, and then you started skydiving. That's really brave. I have somebody here that skydives, and she's just telling me all the time, and I'm like, woman, do you want me to lose my life insurance?
You don't tell them.
You see?
Yeah.
That's my excuse. I told her, listen, Leticia, I cannot skydive with you because I lose my life insurance. But one day she's going to convince me.
Yeah.
How's that experience, skydiving?
It was incredible.
What is the best? Like, a lot of people, and I think where I will be stuck is when I have to jump. You know, that moment about jumping.
And that's
I think once I'm in the air,
that's
I'm like,
probably the best moment. Well, once you're out, there's nothing you can do about it. There's no going back.
Enjoy it.
Might as well enjoy it. Exactly.
And if I die, I'm gonna die here.
But see, most of the time, for a first time, you would go make a tandem jump. So you're strapped to somebody, and you're doing this together, and you know the other person wants to live too. And you know they know what they're doing. They go through very rigorous training.
So then you got to the point that you started skydiving just by yourself?
I actually made my first jump by myself because this was just when tandem jumping just started. But you could do a first jump course where you have like ground training all day long, and then you get on an airplane and you do what's called a static line jump. So there's a line attached to your parachute that's attached to the airplane. So you jump out and it immediately opens the parachute. So you don't really get to experience free fall. So, but I did that. And then they had a headset and they walked me through the landing pattern, and, I landed safely and loved it. But I wanted to experience the free fall because that's what I thought skydiving was about, is the free fall, right?
Okay.
So that's why I wanted to go back and do more of that. And then I made a tandem jump with somebody and just went through the whole course of learning myself to jump.
So
and then I was the skydiving flight attendant for 4 years. I would take my parachute everywhere, and
just in case,
but when we went somewhere, like would fly to Sydney, and I would call up the local drop zone there and say, hey, I'm here, can I come out and jump? And you immediately have friends that way somewhere, because I didn't know a soul in Sydney, and you're in a hotel, and who are you going to go meet, other than your crew? So, but I could go to the local jumping place, the drop zone they call it, and make friends. And so that was really a great time.
What a risk taker. Bibi, wow. Wow. I'm thinking, gee, you would never do that. But I'm just in awe. It's so first of all, the liberating part of it and having control of your life. And I just think it's amazing and super brave. And there's somebody that it's in my life that she's always so adventurous and doing all this crazy, which is Leticia, and camping. And I'm like, sometimes like, you never got scared being alone? Because she will camp just by herself.
Really?
Like, I will come with friends to talk and, just do jokes, but just by yourself in the dark. Like, I would be, I would not be having fun. But it's very meeting brave women like that, and that adventure side is always that. It's always being so curious for me. So
no, it's a great time. I stopped pretty much when I started having kids and haven't gone back to it. It's an expensive sport, but
the kids already changed our life. So you have 3 sons.
Yes,
that's awesome. So now you're already big. You're already living your life. How this entrepreneurship, because she's CEO and owner of Culture
Culture to color.
Culture to color.
Yes.
Which is a very incredible and creative way of, to me, I think it's a great marketing tools for any business. So I want you to tell me, how did this started and how big it has, how it's gone, because she have all these books, guys, over here of different topics of anything that is coloring book on. Actually, it's kind of like of coloring, but really not self-taught, but educational.
Yeah, we call them explainer coloring books because there's so much text with them. If you ever look,
yes,
I don't know, there's always, there's a page to color, but there's a lot of information to go with it. Yeah,
of course.
And so it really, I didn't set out to do this. It just kind of
How did that start?
So I've always liked to take a lot of pictures. And one day my sister-in-law lives in California. She said, if you ever want to show your pictures, you can show them your photography. You can show them at the gallery where I work. And so I did that and saw a coloring book at the gallery of a local photographer had done. And he had taken his pictures and turned them into coloring pages with like these Zentangle patterns and stuff. And they became adult coloring books. And I'm like, oh, that's such a cute idea. I'd love to do that about DeLand, because I've lived there now for over 30 years. And I thought, DeLand has a lot to offer. And, between the skydiving industry, for example, and different, places. And so I went home and I just started doing it. And in the process, I talked to all the different people that had to do with the different businesses that I wanted to include in the book, or the different sites, There's like a beautiful organ at Stetson University that's incidentally from Germany. But so I got to talk to the gentleman who runs all the organs that are there, and he, runs the music department. And so I heard all these interesting stories from people, the behind the scenes stories that you don't usually get, and I had so much fun creating that book about DeLand, and that I just kept going. And my accountant said, let's set up a business, because apparently you're doing something with this, So the first book was about DeLand, and I wanted to give people a little information about what they're coloring. So it had a few lines under the image explaining that this is the West Volusia or the Volusia County Courthouse, or this is Skydive DeLand, or, and gave them some information. And so people know what they're coloring.
So who you pitched this idea to?
I didn't. I did it all out of pocket and didn't really pitch it to anybody. And then after the fact, sold it on Amazon and some of the local stores.
Oh, wow.
And did that a couple more times with New Smyrna and Mount Dora, and quickly realized it's not a really good business model as far as making money, because unless you sell millions of copies of a book, creating books and selling them is a very difficult way of making money, because you have all the expenses associated with it. And then if you sell a book on Amazon for $15, you get $1, maybe $1.50. There isn't a whole lot left. So then I did a book about Tuscany, that a friend of mine organized all these sponsorships in exchange for pages in the coloring books, like wine tastings and Vespa driving and balloon flying and all these fun things. And they got a page in the coloring book, but I didn't have to pay for that trip at all, So, but still didn't make a lot of money. And
enough income to sustain the business.
So at some point, I met a lady in San Francisco, Chinatown, who commissioned me to make a book about Chinatown. And then, my entrepreneurial light bulb went on, like, this is a much better business model, getting people to commission me to do something for them, about them, tell their story, or about their culture or their products and stuff. I've been going to chamber meetings and things like that, and realized that this is something we can do for small businesses too, talk about their products or their processes, like with the home buying book you've seen. And so that's kind of how all of that evolved.
The beautiful thing is storytelling, right? But Leticia, she booked her in the calendar. She's like, you need to meet Bibi, such a great creative woman, and her story it's super, super interesting. Yeah, and then she gave me the book, and it's a buying process and a coloring.
Yeah.
Right?
Do we have one here?
I have it in my office, because I thought, what a great way to include everybody in the home buying process, especially the kids, that sometimes they see the house or whatever, but they don't, they're going to have a bigger space, they're going to have a backyard, but then give him something that, hey, you're part of this process,
yes, exactly.
I think it was brilliant. And then you created other thing. I see one for like tile and flooring that explains about it.
That's a funny story. This guy comes to me and he has a flooring franchise and he said,
so the name is The Stars of the Flooring.
That's their tagline. And he's like, I want a book about carpet and tile. And in the back of my mind, I'm going like, what are we going to do with that? Right?
So how did you came up with that?
So we sat down and we brainstormed. And first of all, we created this little character that's right here.
Looks like a tile.
Yeah.
Tile
right,
boy.
Little tile man. Yeah. And like the doughboy, right? And then we started going into, like, we start with a little bit of history about flooring. Because that's always interesting. And then we just basically talk about the different flooring materials, tile and carpet and hardwood and, bamboo and glass and what all they have, and just have fun images to go with it, how something is spill proof. And it came out really, really cute. And the customer is super happy with it,
So then he puts an order and then he uses it as a marketing material for whatever.
So when he goes and visits customers that want a quote, this is something he gives them. And it surely sets them apart from anybody else they will get a quote from.
I think so.
And we put his branding, on the front cover and on the back cover. And then throughout the book, there's a page where it talks about like who we are and has contact info. And you can put in QR codes, wherever you want to direct people. And
that's brilliant.
To your website or to donate or to volunteer.
So it's really targeted to like children or adults who like to color, right?
Yeah, adult coloring is a big, big movement. Go to a bookstore and find adult coloring books.
It's true because I get all those ads on Facebook all the time, which is with the little division and all that.
Look up adult coloring on Facebook.
And I have a friend of mine that they're like, this is for anxiety and stuff like that. And it's so big now.
Every book we include this page, some benefits of coloring. Because it's not just for kids anymore. And these images are not specifically geared towards kids.
Actually,
they're not
a kid will have a hard time coloring the house.
Yeah, they're pretty detailed. And
wow.
They have a lot of wellness benefits, and we include that with every book.
Reduce the stress of anxiety, guys.
Yeah, helps you sleep at night.
Does it have to do anything with memory? I think even so many adults and stuff like that, I'm going to pitch it to 55 and plus where my mother-in-law lives because, they're always looking for extracurricular stuff. And I think that'll be great.
Yeah.
So this whole entire marketing idea came out. And then definitely sounds like an entrepreneur. You have a great idea. How can I monetize it? Right?
Yeah.
It's not making sense in this. That's why I love this story, Bibi, because a lot of people in the first failure, they give up, right? But your next idea is right around the corner. Just don't give up. So
the first step in that wasn't even Chinatown that said, we're going to pay you to do this. It was a book that we did during COVID for the kids book that you saw. It's Endangered Animals of North America. And to cover the cost of it, I had people sponsor the animals, people or small local businesses. So it paid for the production of the book. And so that was a first attempt to not lose money.
And this is Spanish. What I love is in English and Spanish.
English and Spanish, yes. And these are available on Amazon too. Anybody can order them.
Send me that link for my Aria Rose.
You
definitely.
can have one.
Oh,
yes, of course.
Listen, I was telling her that I'm making her speak Spanish because she understands it, but she have to speak it. But
yeah. And the animal facts, what I learned about animals, it was so fascinating. There's such great
learning.
You're
becoming an encyclopedia with all this information you're acquiring.
I wish I could retain it all.
That's another thing.
Yeah. But you'll find it interesting too, the information you'll learn from reading it and relaying that to your daughter.
COVID time come and this book is born.
Yeah.
How was the reaction?
I wanted to do something during COVID and you couldn't go volunteer places, because they wouldn't let you in. So I started donating. We put together these coloring kits and donated them to retirement homes and nursing homes and hospitals. a few pages to color and a nice, like a cover letter type of a thing and a pack of pencils or markers, and donated them. And some lady said, do you have anything for kids? And I'm like, I don't, but I can come up with something. And so I found this designer who created 5 Florida animals, and they were so cute that I said, I have to do more with this person. And so we got into that. We developed that concept. So that's how that started. And so my hope was to get that into all the zoos and aquariums and stuff, but it's very difficult to get in there. If you have one product that said there's a middleman type company, and, if you can't get your foot in the door there, it's difficult. But it won 4 book awards.
Wow.
And so from that perspective, it's done really well.
So from that connects you with the Chinatown project.
And from that, the next step was the Chinatown book.
What was the one that it was most profitable?
Probably the latest book I did about that I'm doing about the Berlin airlift, because this is Chinatown.
I love it.
Yeah.
So then this one came up, baby.
And then the business
2022. The business started picking up.
Yeah.
And then you're like, okay, I'm into something.
Yeah. And then we started working with some of the local smaller business, like the flooring guy. We have a lady who sells hemp and CBD products, and she wanted a book for her customers. Some people can really see it, like they marketing outside the lines. Absolutely. What it is,
Absolutely.
And so,
how long does this business has been going on now?
6 years.
6 years.
The first The Land was published in 2018. Yeah.
Wow.
So and it's
coming from being adventurous, definitely, being a flight attendant, then entrepreneurship comes to you, and then you have to navigate, because as you see, entrepreneurship, there's a lot more holes than straight roads, right? Was there any doubt, or I'm asking this because a lot of times we doubt ourselves. We can have an amazing idea, but then we have this little thing over here that plays game on us, right? Mm-hmm. And then we start doubting. Were there any moment, was it the beginning of the business, was in the middle, that you start doubting, maybe this is just a great idea, but I'm just a dreamer, what people call a lot of entrepreneurs. You're just a dreamer and not a realist.
All the time. And that's the kind of stuff that keeps you up at night, right? You wake up in the middle of the night and you can't go back to sleep because you have that little thought in your mind that just says, stupid stuff, really. In the light of day, it doesn't hold up, but at night, a lot of times it does.
Yes.
And keeps you up for hours, or keeps me up for hours anyway. But I have doubts all the time. And sometimes I don't know what the best direction is to go, what are the next steps and all that kind of stuff. But I really learned to follow my gut, or my inner guidance system, so to speak, if that makes sense, and look for signs too. That sounds very hocus pocus, but like what is the universe telling me, and like there'll be signs, and I know I listen to what feels right and what doesn't feel right, and follow that.
So very intuitive.
Yeah.
What motivates Bibi to keep going? Because as we know,
like this book about the airlift, that was not even a thing I was thinking about, but like all these little puzzle pieces were coming together. And I feel like now, looking back, I feel like this book reached out to me. It needed to be done. It needed to be written, and the story needed to be told. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to do this. Last year, I realized this was the 75th anniversary. So I'm like, if I'm going to do this, I have to do it now. So I got up at 4:30 every morning, wrote the story, got the designs done with the help of my amazing team, and put this book out. And because I wanted that story out there, because once I learned what that was all about, it's a very powerful story. And I'm like, I thought that was it. But now I'm realizing the book was just the beginning of something new. Like now I'm getting booked for speaking engagements to tell that story, and that's something, yes. And
so that project sends you to your next task, which is stages.
Yes.
Isn't that lovely?
Yeah. And it like really feels like it was meant to happen somehow. And I got drawn in, you know, like.
It's your own story, where you were born, what you experienced. So I think that's why it's so dear to,
it's very
to
personal.
your heart.
Yes.
So now you feel the confidence to be able to speak a little bit of your story, because it's yours and nobody can take it away.
Yeah. And that makes it interesting, I think, for others for me to be the speaker, because I lived with the aftermath of what happened during the airlift. My life would have looked very different, you know, so I can speak from that perspective. And speaking was not something that I ever thought I wanted to do, because I was so shy, and being on stage, or even at the chamber meetings, like getting the microphone when we make the rounds, introducing ourselves, scary. My heart rate would go up when it was 10 people away, you know, but 5 years ago I signed up. There was a speaking event in Daytona called Elevate Daytona, and people can audition, and you get to talk for 5 minutes. It's like a short version of a TED style talk, and you have to have 20 slides, and you can do your story. And I'm like, I can do this. I wanted to overcome that fear. Just like with skydiving, that was something I wanted to do it once, just to see if I had the guts to do it. And then it pulled me in, and I did a lot more of it, and it changed, you know, the direction of my life. And so with the speaking too, I did that just once because I wanted to get over that fear. And I said, I can talk for 5 minutes, you know? And so I signed up for it and auditioned, and they took me, and it was telling the story of growing up in Berlin during the Cold War, you know, in 5 minutes condensed version, but they liked it. So I did that, and a lot of doors have opened as a result of that. So that's another thing. Sometimes overcoming your fears, stepping outside of your comfort zone, it's a big deal, you know, doing these things. And now I'm being booked and starting to get paid doing speaking.
I'm so happy for you, because that's the power of being uncomfortable with the uncomfortable. Because when we're comfortable, we don't grow, we get stale, we start actually dying. But moving yourself, and that's something that I guess because your past experiences of you having to survive, you know, do skydiving, you're like, wait, there's more. This woman has more in her, you know. And I think it's powerful where you have brought out your next fight, which it has to do with your story, because it's more powerful, because you feel more confident because it's your story. Now, so then you say that you have to push yourself to be a public speaker. How is it going? Do you still get those nerves? Do you manage it? I want to know, because I know exactly what you're talking about, but a lot of people said that ever goes away.
No, it hasn't yet. I haven't done that much of it, and nothing really big just yet. You know, I mean, that audience probably had 300-400 people. That was the biggest I've done.
That's a lot.
That was a lot. Yes, I've spoken at the chamber meeting, and at Rotary, and at a university in Norway. That was a very small group, and different places like that. But I have now more scheduled. So ask me a year from now and I'll tell you. But I don't think it goes away from what I hear from other speakers.
It doesn't.
No.
You learn how to manage it.
Yeah.
And you learn how to know that you're nervous, because we're human, and there's all this little thing again here.
Yeah.
You know, it's like when we're driving, that sometimes we know we're going home, and all of a sudden you like kind of wake up and you're like, did I turn the green light? How did I got here? You know, that you're doubting yourself. Did I just...
Because you're somewhere completely different in your mind, thinking about the day or the future.
And how boring is that, rather than say being alert and pushing yourself to new height. And it's super inspiring to know that, and knowing you how I know you're going to do amazing.
Thank you.
And this is just the beginning. Because one thing will take you to the next assignment. They're little assignment in our life that I truly believe God put in our path for us to overcome, to really dig inside and see what we have in us. You know, life experiences and much more. Yeah.
And it's not about age either. You know, I just turned 60 in September. And and like that was the first big birthday that bothered me, really.
Really?
Yeah. And my son the other day, he said to me, you know, when are you going to live the life of your dreams? I'm like, I'm working on it. Every day I live the life of my dreams, And he's like, you're in your 60s. What do you mean? I'm like
if you're old or something.
Yeah,
I'm like,
what
I'm
does
just
that
starting.
even mean? But we're so conditioned. Like, when we're young, we're doing school, we're doing university, we get married, we buy a house, we have kids, we have a career, then the kids leave, then we retire, then what? There's like nothing left, and it does not have to be like that.
I agree.
And I feel like people who have a purpose, even in an old age, they do much, much better and live longer. And,
it's called maturity. We don't make the mistakes. I think we still make mistakes, but they're a little more controlled than when we're younger. Absolutely. If you see all these amazing overachievers, Disney, Oprah, like they all started at such a, later in life, because guys, it must be because I just turned 41. But aging, not to these young people over here that are always telling us that we're old, it's one of the most satisfying thing. I was talking about, we're always putting all these things anti-aging, and we're preventing something that is going to naturally happen no matter what. No matter what, we're going to head there. So rather than saying anti-aging, it will be enjoying aging, because it's a process that you're discovering different version of yourself in different stages of your life. Like I remember in my 10s, my 20s, my 30s, and now my 40s, I was like, everything makes so much sense, especially, and I want to finish with this part, because there's a lot of women, and my gentlemen too, they sacrifice a lot, but we're women here right now, that we sacrifice even more, because kids, we sacrifice our bodies, we sacrifice our time, we sacrifice even our want. Because let me tell you one thing, those little ones get in our life, and there's a little thing about my husband that he's like, yeah, you can never be happy. Like, you want to travel with them, you do, and they're like, oh, I wish to be alone. And then you travel without them, like, I miss them. Yeah. As soon as those amazing individuals come out of us, we don't ever have a life again, because we always have this thing here. I want to have my kids. So for us women, that gives so much more. I think we sustain humanity, comes from us, and the nurturing part that God put in us to do, that I think is one of the most incredible instinct that He's put us in women, and also that sixth sense that we sense a lot. A lot of us think that when we're a certain age, when we're getting closer to that 50 mark or 60, that we're done. And the contrary, I want to have no quantity but quality. Knowing that I like, wow, I'm living a life to a full potential and not limiting myself. So
maybe you'll go skydiving then.
Yeah, no, she's pushing me to skydive, you see? And I'm going to tag her. I promised Leticia I was going to do it. We're going to do it in Melbourne once the weather permits.
Tell me when you're going. I'll come.
We will definitely tag you along, because I've been trying to convince my husband so he can, but he will never get in anything that is tight. But it's beautiful to see that each decade, each stage in our life, it's just a new opportunity. There's many people that didn't make it this morning, and they were probably in their 30s. And that was their aging. That was the oldest that they'll ever be. So just to
don't buy into that.
Yeah, to see you and talk about it, it just gives me so much hope. And I think you should write another book about women owning up to not giving up, whether age, whether limitation. You know what? That maybe we can have it, I don't know, in salon or spa, that they can say, what is the joy of aging and living a life with a purpose and drive? That
would make a great podcast series,
I know.
Yeah.
I can produce it for you, baby. I have a really good company.
I'm sure, there's lots of women out there with good stories to tell.
And it is. A lot of times,
stuff late in their life.
We have sacrificed so much to keep it inside. And I think that's why this podcast was also created, is to expose so many things that we have kept it, because it's ours and it's private, whatever, but it can help so many more women out there that are struggling and they don't have nobody to give them a hand and say, hey, I went through that too. And it's a beautiful process to grow. It's a beautiful process, because all we think that winning. And guess what? Losing, guys, and painful times are also part of growing and maturing.
Yeah. For sure.
Or you told me that you have just a couple years older than me, Bibi. Can't wait. I'm going to call my mom and say, you told me that you're 60. You just need to meet this woman that's skydiving. Are you still skydiving? No.
Not so much. It's too expensive. It's like been there, done that. I have over 500 jumps and
500?
Yeah. It's like I want to do other things now. Like it's not that high on the.
Please.
Yeah. I want to do what you do. I want to do podcasts. Because people have stories. Everybody has a story to tell.
And I think you're a great communicator, by the way. And I don't know what you said, the shyness about you, but you give a good sense of trust into people that people just open up. And you're a great storyteller.
Thank you. Something I've learned along the way,
We learn a lot on the way. And that's the beautiful thing. We're not the same when we're younger.
Yeah.
What would you tell that younger Bibi?
Really trust in yourself, follow your gut, believe in yourself, and open up and talk to people and share yourself too. I feel like until 10 or so years ago, I wasn't really sharing myself with a lot of people. Like I would let them do the talking, and people love to talk, and everybody wants to be heard, so you can ask questions and ask questions and ask questions, and they'll keep talking and talking and talking. But I wasn't sharing a lot of myself, but I think that's important too, to build a relationship that goes both ways. And I just felt like I wasn't in a good place to do that for many years. So now that's I'm starting to be comfortable, and I realize how important that is too.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
You're telling that to many girls or many women of different ages, because that's the beautiful thing about being a woman in different ages. It's like us as different women within one life, right? And we tend to limit ourselves, and it's beautiful. But I think you've been living your life, baby, like throwing yourself 500 times from an airplane. Look at me. I'm not even throwing myself, not even 1 foot. So thank you so much. It's been a lovely talk. This, guys, we're going to put the handle to follow Bibi. Any business that you guys have, this is a great opportunity just to include any of your brand awareness. It's huge. Storytelling, marketing.
That saying, people do business with people who they know, like, and trust. And what a better way than to share your story in a little book like this. Talk about why you founded your business, or explain your products, or whatever it is you want to share with the world. It's a great tool.
You have no idea. You just have put a little chip here of so many things that we can do this, that it's the sky. There's no limit.
Yes, truly.
And because it's such a broad business that you can put it in any stage and in anything. And I think it's relatable. It's definitely marketable because it's marketing material and people like and enjoy, and it's super beneficial. Thank you for coming.
Thank you. Thank you.
Can't wait to produce your podcast and see you talking, because you have so much story and it's very inspiring. Thank you, Bibi.
Thank you.
Again, don't forget to subscribe, rate, comment. My producer was calling me, Haji, what else are you going to mess up? It means the world when you guys write to us, when you guys have questions. It's a cross collaboration of what you guys want to hear, what you guys want more or need. And that's what I feel that this space and this platform is for you guys. But thank you one more time. Love you guys, and have a blessed week.